You recently posted a tweet where you were asking a number of questions that I think are interesting. What has the dark side of Me Too been? And then also,
The most insulting question any man could ever hear. What is the dark side to Me Too, right? What is the dark side of the KKK? That's what it's saying. What's the dark side? Because there's this light side to it, right? There's this good side to avoiding the legal system, to strip men of their rights. Colonel Kurtz, right? Anyway, this guy she's talking to. I know what Justin Baldoni is going through, former Amazon studio chief. Right. So men know what's going on. So of course, why doesn't this guy come out and say, what do you mean the dark side? It's one giant dark.
the question of how many of these celebrity prominent Me Too cases turned out to be legitimate. It seems like a lot of them did not. And you look into those.
None of them are legitimate. Kurtz, Colonel Kurtz, none of them are legitimate. If they were legitimate, they'd go to the police. And if they don't have the proof or evidence that it works for the police, then they have no business slandering a man online.
In your Substack essay and your tweet to an extent. Also, you ask who is behind this cultural shift, and do we really fully understand?
Not a cultural shift. It is not a cultural shift. Women have always felt this way about men. Why? Hey, Kurtz, why do you think in the Middle East countries they had that rule that it took two women together to accuse a single man? Because they knew that's what the women were like. They knew women were hostile to men then. So this is not a cultural shift. This has always been the case.
And their motives, or how all of this really came about with Me Too and the rise of Me Too. I want to talk about all that because those are the kinds of questions that I ask here. But first of all, like, you have a story with a Me Too, and I'm just going to call it hoax, a Me Too hoax.
Well, that's what Me Too is. They're all hoaxes, Kurtz.
Early on in Me Too that was perpetuated against you. And I know you've talked about this before on Bret Easton Ellis's show and can refer people to that as well. But I'm just curious, kind of, where are you at with all of that now, and how do you think about that looking back on it?
Well, look, on Me Too in general, there's sort of the legitimate part.
There you go. This scumbag right here, and he's going to give this story where he was lied about, and now he's going to try and give a legitimacy to this criminal act, this act of criminality. Dude, I hope you get Me Too'd again.
And then once people see the legitimate part, it's obvious that you could create something that looks very similar to one of the legitimate ones. And
so it's legitimate for a woman to avoid the legal system for a man and just slander him online. That's legitimate. Right.
But you just made it up, and you can accomplish some goal. And so if you give people a magic wand where they can get people fired or whatever it is, a lot of people are going to wave that wand, all over.
It's called HR, by the way. That's one of the many wands women have. But the ultimate wand is guys like you. Guys like you who legitimize or try to legitimize the criminal activity of women towards men. That's the ultimate magic wand. Male hostility towards one another.
Wilshire Boulevard,
Right.
And so A lot of it was legit. I'm sure there appear to be some very, very real cases, which is
Really, really, there were real cases where women couldn't prove what they said to the legal system, but they could prove it online.
what makes it complicated. And then there were a bunch of cases that were not real and that really were motivated by sort of a broader sense of mission that, like, oh, we have to take a lot of these guys out and free up certain jobs.
Because women
For women, exactly. Free up certain jobs. Get men fired, replace them with women, and then continue that. Right. But still, I don't know how much further I need to go. The first 2 minutes. This guy here is supporting a criminal movement. So, dude, I really hope you get Me Too'd big time.
one of the
and
things you get into one of the things you get into in your essay is how at the same time you've got the rise of Me Too, you have a lot of activists in the industry, in the entertainment industry.
There is no rise to Me Too. Women have always been telling lies about men, always. All that's happened is the internet has allowed women to coordinate with one another.
Very loudly demanding that you have what, equal 50-50 men and women in terms of executive leadership in the studios.
you had Time's Up, which was supposed
But they don't want 50-50. They want to be in charge, period. That's the whole point is get the man fired, replace him with a woman. Not that there's 50-50, so that it's 100% women.
supposed to be like a legal defense fund, but at the same time as being a legal defense fund, it had goals that it was supposed to achieve in terms of what percent of jobs were going to wind up in this category and that other category, which is a little odd because that's not normally what a legal defense fund does or concerns itself with.
There are these forces that agitate for someone's firing that do want to see that, because the person who succeeded you was a woman, right, at Amazon, and there a lot was made of that, right?
Right.
So are you saying you got fired and you were replaced by a woman?
You have people who actually have a personal interest.
Right.
You really have all sorts of motivation. Then you have people who they don't care specifically about this individual and that individual, but they just want to see sort of a mass change, not over 20 years, but over like 20 minutes of, the top people in the business. And like this.
Yeah, women do want a mass change in 20 minutes. They want to boot you guys out, take control, and exercise continual sadism, which you're all right with, dude, whatever your name is, former studio head. What's your name anyway? Do you give it? No. You nobody. You're fine with it, just as long as it isn't you.
Has to happen now. And that's the whole concept of time. That's why it's called Time's Up.
And notice how like non-angry this guy is over this. Right? There's this this KKK movement is so legitimate because I don't like other men. And I almost got zapped, but I didn't. So there's no reason to be angry.
All this stuff has to happen now. It can't be some kind of evolution. So there were people who are heavily motivated in that way, and I think played a significant role in saying, like, what should all the rules be? The rules should be that you kind of can't speak up for yourself. No one is going to print that in a publication.
You're talking about, sorry, after you're saying, like, after you've been falsely accused, and it seems like you experienced this too, that there are these.
So this guy has been falsely accused. By rights, he should recognize this criminal movement for what it is. But he supports it. Again, whatever your name is, dude, I really sincerely hope you get Me Too'd so hard that you never recover.
or maybe up until recently, there have been these sort of rules of decorum for how you should
Yeah.
conduct yourself, and they were really debilitating in terms of you defending yourself, because one of the things that you're told is be quiet, be silent, don't fight back, right?
Right, right. But it's a one-way street for the genders, right? This is the rule for the male victims of the Me Too crime. So this is pure sexism. And this is how men regard sexism. Just take it because I'm male.
Yeah, that was considered in sort of Me Too version 1 as being inappropriate. So if you make any case that like maybe this is not true, that's inappropriate. And then
Inappropriate. No, listen to the lay down slave language this guy uses. Right. This isn't unjust to him. It's just inappropriate.
another Me Too version 1 rule is that all infractions are the same.
Right.
So you could be a murderer, or you could have made a passing comment to someone at some point 20 years ago.
20 years ago, exactly. It's get the man. So, dude, why are you saying that this movement, this evil criminal movement, let me be more explicit or whatever. It's women attacking men. You're fine with it. You're all right with this. There's a light side to this. There are legitimate cases. There's legitimate cases where the legal system can be avoided and men cannot have their rights. Men do not deserve to have their day in court. Right. Okay. And that's the light side. So I'm not going any further than this. I'm not listening to 20 more minutes of this disgusting man legitimize this evil movement just because he's all right with other men getting zapped. You disgust me.